And I'd be curious to know from Hemant, what he thinks grounds his morality when you run into someone who's a postmodernist or a nihilist who says, well, why are you saying you have anything except preferences? Why should your preferences be binding on me any more than aesthetic preferences are? I prefer Stephen Sondheim to Andrew Lloyd Webber. Now, I might maintain that's an objectively true thing. But what is it about your preferences that means they're anything more than aesthetic preferences as applied to human action rather than art?
I still have no idea what that question's saying.
Well, I mean...
Hemant, if you prefer certain art to other art, you wouldn't expect someone else to hew to your preferences.
That's
if
true.
you prefer certain actions to other actions, you have this expectation that people will share your preferences, that there's something universal that means that they should find those preferences compelling. I mean, you obviously believe that reason, at least, is universal and compelling because you think that I should have an argument that is compelling to all people and like a logical throughput when they read it. Why is it that when it comes to moral questions, you think they're more like reason and less like art?
I'm not sure how to answer that. I don't know that everyone should have the same morality, and I know that they don't, and not everyone's going to agree with my morality versus someone else's. I think you can have good reasons for choosing different paths in that sense.
Well, then what's the heuristic by which you check? Some people, I think we both agree some people have, bad things that they value or, misapplied priorities or just actually, value bad things in the case of, the Taliban structure of morality where women are counted as less than human. Is there something that they're missing that means that they're, missing out on a fact that would tell them that's not true? Is that an arbitrary distinction and, you just don't share their beliefs, but there's not a reason they should share yours?
That women should be treated equally?
That's what I believe. That's what you believe. And
Right.
Some people don't believe that. What's the reason by which they should come to believe what we believe rather than say, oh, people all have different ideas?
What's the reason other than some religious person told them otherwise, or they interpreted some holy book as being right, so they're just following that step? I mean, I still don't get how we have to deviate from someone who deviates from saying people are treated equally or treated equally.
I suppose what Leah's asking is essentially what grounds your belief in the equality of human beings. What kind of would you point someone to?
I didn't realize that needed justification. I mean, to say that people ought to be treated equally, that we ought to live by that golden rule so we can live a better life, to me, none of that stuff requires justification. To say anything deviated from that, you got to have a really good reason for saying you're superior to someone else, that someone else doesn't deserve the same rights that you do. As soon as you start making claims like that, you better have a good reason for it.
Well, then it sounds like, Hemant, that you believe that there's some, universal groundwork of data, metaphysics, whatever you'd like to call it, that should lead everyone to similar conclusions, whether it's just even epistemological modesty. I don't have a reason to think that I'm superior to other people, so I'll act as though we're equal. Is that accurate, that you think there's a universal set of facts about how we should treat other people that everyone has access to? Because it sounds like you're saying people only deviate from that when they're pulled by some external force, like a book or a movement, but their baseline are some of these beliefs that we share.
But it seems like that's the best way to live your life, where, you're no better than anyone else, you're no worse than anyone else. Let's treat people with decency, because that makes for a better life for all of us. And as soon as
the problem is,
some religious leader says, no, we're going to say that men are better than women, and people who follow this faith are headed for a better afterlife than the people of this faith. As soon as you start making up claims like that...
But what's to say... Why should they not say that your claim is being made up, that all people are equal, Hemant? I mean, this is the point, is that you've got a different opinion to them, and I suppose Leah's just asking you, how would you show someone else that your opinion was the correct opinion? You do believe yours is the correct opinion, the other person is wrong. So upon what basis are you making that judgment? Because... to cut a long story short, this is the thing that is essentially at the core of Leah's conversion, is that there must be a moral lawgiver, let's say. She may not term it that way, and I'll allow her to phrase it, but that at least this fact that we do apprehend this realm of morality, which seems on the face of it to be objective, that there are good reasons why we should believe something and not the other thing, is very difficult to get on an atheist framework. It's very difficult to explain that on an atheist, and I think from the sounds of it, you're having difficulty explaining it because you've already referenced the fact, well, it's a better world when we live like this. Well, that's the whole point. To what standard are you appealing when you say better?
I guess the only standard I'm appealing to is that from the tradition we have, from the history we have, that seems to be a world where people are happiest, where people are treating each other equally. Everyone gets along better. As soon as you start putting other people down, all of a sudden you're setting yourself up for conflict, and that's something religion has done over and over again.
But again, aren't these all value-laden? We're better off. It's a worse world where there's conflict. Leah, I mean...
I think it's interesting that you're using happiness as kind of the metric, because I think we frequently run into the problem where someone claims to be happy, but we think they're being made happy by the wrong thing, or, where a friend says, look, I know you like him, I know you think he's good for you, but you're less yourself around him there. But I'm happy. You go, well, you're wrong to be made happy by this. There's a different kind of happiness that would be better for you, Your subjective feelings of happiness aren't the most reliable guide to what you should do. You need something, a little more robust to ground them in. Because people, you don't have to think anything about a different moral system is right to think that people in a culture are often made happy by hewing to their culture. And they'll tell you honestly, I'm happy as I am. I don't believe you that this, radical transformation will make me happier. And you and I, both think that they're wrong, that, they would be made happier if they changed over, that their subjective beliefs are tricking them. But they'd say the same thing about us. So what do we appeal to say that we're actually correct, that our happiness, is better, is grounded in something that's truer, more fulfilling, and they're not. They're not lying.
If I could come in on the side of Hemant at this point, and we'll allow Hemant to respond as well. This area, which we obviously got into now, the moral argument. A couple of people wanted to weigh in on this when I asked for people's opinions. Here's Andrew, who says, I think Andrew's coming from an atheist perspective here. He says, question for Leah, do you have any objective evidence that objective morality exists, or do you just feel very strongly that it does? So the question, I suppose, is, are you just going on a hunch, an intuition that these things do exist, that there really is this objective morality out there?
I think the thing that it's often helpful for people to specify what class of evidence they're looking for. There's the problem where people say no inductive proof is really a solid one. You can't say that you're certain the sun will rise tomorrow. You don't have any evidence about that. You only have evidence about what has happened up till this point in kind of the Hume objection. And I think that's a ridiculous standard of evidence to apply to everything, because then we end up kind of flailing around, unable to make any pronouncements. I'd say the way I feel about morality is the way someone who lived before we had a firm understanding of the physiology of the eye or the neuroscience of vision felt about sight. I have some facility in me which receives data about these things, which does it immediately without an act of my will. I don't understand the precise mechanism of it, but I do receive these sensations. This is wrong. This is not. I can check them by kind of formalizing some of the systems in the same way that you can get tricked by optical illusions and then go, oh, I notice this is a flaw in the way I see. I'll have to be mindful of that in the future. And that's the way I approach morality, like vision, where I'm not adept in the physiology of it, but
you also used
sight.
A nice analogy on the CNN interview you did. You compared your view of morality to being that more of an archaeologist than an architect, that we discover laws that are already there rather than build our own laws from a sort of no foundation, as it were. Hemant, I mean, let's have you respond now. Are you any clearer? Is this making any more sense to you, or are you just still really...
No, none whatsoever. But I guess my question is still, even if this morality thing, even if you're saying there is this objective, this lawgiver whatsoever, what I think when people have talked to me about this, what they don't understand is how you jump from any of that philosophical stuff to the Pope is right.